I have been a glass artist for well over 50 years now. And during that time, my work really is focused around cosmology, around astronomy, astrophysics, and space travel. And I've spent my entire life formulating different glasses that are specifically made to have vibrant color and interesting complex patterning in them. Glass is the most incredible stuff. It's been around for well over 2,000 years. And to make glass, the primary ingredient is silica, but you also need a flux and you need stabilizers to keep the glass from falling apart. So you need silica and you need calcium and magnesium along with the flux. And I don't really actually want to talk about my glass today. I want to talk about the moon. The moon is a remarkably hostile place. It has no atmosphere, no clouds. It has 1/6 the gravity of Earth, and a lunar day is 14 Earth days long, followed by an equal nighttime. The temperature swings are amazing. It goes from plus 250 degrees Fahrenheit to minus 240 degrees at night. So that's almost 500-degree temperature swing. And without a spacesuit, you die instantly. So it's a pretty hard environment. And in spite of that, NASA is thinking and planning to go back and have a permanent human presence on the moon. To do that, I partnered and began to talk 3 years ago with an architect, Martin Bermudez, an architect in California. And we thought about the possibility of building structures on the moon. When we go back to the moon, so far when astronauts, actually from 1969 to 71, 6 Apollo missions brought 12 astronauts to the moon. And during that time, those astronauts lived in a tiny little, essentially a cabin. There was almost no space at all. But to live there and have a permanent presence, we're going to have to bring some kind of structures with us. But the problem is, to bring buildings, to bring whole structures up to the moon is prohibitively expensive and costly and difficult to do to get them out of the Earth's gravity well. And so my partner, Martin Bermudez, and I began to think about what if we could use materials that are already on the moon in situ to build a habitat. That would be literally game-changing. So the astronauts that went 50 years ago to the moon brought back 840 pounds of rocks and lunar soil. Lunar soil is known as regolith. And those are probably literally the most studied rocks in the history of geology. And so they know exactly, precisely chemically what is in lunar soil. And what's amazing is that lunar soil is about 50% silica, and it also has calcium, about 12%, and magnesium. So it has already 2 things that you need to make glass. It has silica, and it has stabilizers. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could go to the moon and instead of bringing 100 pounds of material to build something if we could bring out 20 pounds or 25 pounds of flux and then use materials that are already on the moon to make a glass. So my partner Martin and I, and actually he's an architect, he designed a structure, and there's a group at NASA that thinks about things far into the future. It's called NIAC. It's NASA's Innovative Advanced Concepts Program. This is a small group at NASA that thinks about things that aren't right on the horizon, but things that might happen 20 or 40 years from now. And when you think about that, cell phones 50 or 40 years ago they would have been science fiction. So Martin and I began to think about this, and NIAC, this NASA's Innovative Advanced Concepts Group, has a grant program where they give out small grants to innovative and crazy ideas. And so out of 450 applicants 2 years ago, they didn't choose us, but last year they did. And so they chose 15 groups, some of them very august, like MIT, Johnson Space Center, Goddard Space Flight Center, Caltech, and Martin and Josh. And so it was really this amazing challenge to figure out how to turn lunar regolith into a usable glass. And of course, with our grant money, it allowed us to, this is my glass studio, which is out in Western Massachusetts. It allowed us to buy a small furnace that's electrically powered. On the moon, the 14 days of daylight could produce fantastic amounts of solar power, electric power. So we chose an electric furnace, and I have all the fluxes imaginable because I've spent my life mixing glasses together. And so that's what I began to do. I began to experiment by adding small amounts of flux and larger amounts of different kinds of flux until I began to get liquid glasses. And this required, carefully weighing, carefully mixing, and eventually taking the glass batch and putting it into a furnace. So after really, literally only probably a little more than 20 melts, I was able to get a glass that actually behaved like glass on Earth. And it's kind of amazing to think here that I'm using a tool that was invented 2,300 years ago to gather up on my blowpipe a quantity of glass, heat it up, and inflate it to make a sphere. And so this is a first small step, just even proving that you can melt this glass. It also has iron in it, which makes the glass a dark green color, but actually the reason Coke bottles are green is because there's iron in the sand that they use for Coke bottles. So I'm just blowing this. And it's probably about 1 foot in diameter, size of a soccer ball maybe. And now I'll put it away. I used the flux borax because it makes a glass that's has a very small coefficient of expansion. Borax is the flux that's used to make Pyrex glasses that can go from the refrigerator to the oven. So the idea is to make a glass that can stand huge temperature swings. So what we're envisioning is blowing a sphere that could hold atmosphere and protect astronauts.
Humanity awakens. We hurl ourselves into the unknown, shattering the chains of gravity. This is our odyssey, the dawn of a new frontier, where we will rise among the stars. Behold the voyager of destiny, bearing humanity's greatest gift, a cargo forged in innovation's fire, not mere tools, but the seeds of transformation to conquer the moon's extreme environment, deliver survival in vacuum's embrace, and birth a new epoch of existence. Here lie the echoes of giants, the Apollo astronauts' daring visions, NASA's unyielding vision, civilization's unbreakable will. We honor their legacy not as visitors, but as pioneers returned. This time, we claim the moon to stay, to build, and to thrive. This is lungs, lunar glass structures. Lunar regolith is rich in silicates and metal compounds that are essential to melt and blow large monolithic spherical glass enclosures. The furnace's microwave melting technology, with its unique energy-efficient systems and faster melting of glass compounds, will be designed and built on Earth and transported via a capable lunar lander. The furnace's upper area will be filled with raw lunar glass compound. When it reaches the desired melting temperature, a blowing metal pipe will move upwards and catch a batch of melted compound and take it out of the furnace. Then, using a pressurized gas injected inside the pipe, it will start the blowing process. The furnace will be capable of blowing large concentric glass spheres. The design will provide structural integrity against extreme temperatures, micrometeorite impacts, solar and galactic cosmic radiation, and seismic activity from moonquakes. The gap between each sphere will be filled with compressed argon gas to add a more robust thermal insulation to the interior of the habitat. The smaller inner sphere will be enclosed by two outer spheres and filled with loose regolith to provide thermal and radiation protection to the interior living spaces. The nest, which will be designed to be the central living and working area of the habitat by providing all the necessary environmental control. This inner self-sustained living area will be designed to host all of the amenities, living spaces, working areas, social and communal spaces, exercise, and farming areas. The habitat interior will be designed to minimize structural density while enhancing functionality, openness, and interconnectivity between spaces. The central core elevator system will connect each floor through a series of free-floating bridges to the living and working areas, which will be situated along the facing walls of the spheres. As we celebrate humanity's shared triumph in reaching beyond our origins, this creation, born from our collective ingenuity and in situ lunar resources, crafts a resilient sanctuary that shields us from the void's challenges while fostering sustainable communities. It embodies our unyielding drive to explore, adapt, and thrive as a species, marking a profound step toward a multi-planetary future where we build new homes among the stars. And we'll live for eternity.
This is my partner, Martin Bermudez. We gave an interim report to NASA a few weeks ago in Philadelphia, and this seems like science fiction, but NASA, at least their Advanced Concepts program, thinks it's at least theoretically feasible. And it may not look like this. Someone else may take up this. I mean, making glass turns out to be the easy part. And so there's a lot of places where this could go wrong and get more complicated. But for me, this is really kind of a personal thing because my wife, out of thousands of applicants, was chosen as a NASA astronaut in 1992. She's actually flown 2 space shuttle missions and 1 mission with the Russians where she lived on the International Space Station for 6 months. As an astronaut, you're permitted to bring small items with you, personal items, and she took some of my glass planets with her. So we've been getting a great deal of publicity on this project, especially in Europe.
Glace structure, ce sont des sphères de verre, vous pouvez les admirer. Alors plusieurs avantages, puisqu'on parle d'abord de structures qui vont être en un seul bloc, donc ça veut dire très solide.
And a lot of newspaper and internet coverage, different magazines. Anyway, that's my talk. Thank you.